Hey everybody. So I'm back to do another video, and I know I promised on the last one that I was going to do something from the Blueberry Cove bead box. However, I've been struggling pretty bad with a flu. You might hear me sniffling an awful lot. I am struggling with a sinus infection right now. You can probably hear my lovely nasally voice. I decided that it's already, I already received my other Blueberry Cove bead box, so I'm a little bit behind on stuff. But anyway, I decided what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you a little bit of a different project, and then I will do my Blueberry Cove challenge on the next video. So I just want to give myself a little bit of time to clear my head and to try and work on things that I'm a little bit more familiar with. So anyway, so this is what we're going to be working on. I did some Metis Beadwork flower pattern, and I just did it on a piece of felt. And this is stuff that people call lacy stiff stuff. However, I made this myself, and in a future video I'm going to show you how to make it, because that lacy stiff stuff I found to be kind of expensive. So I decided that I would make my own, and I'll show you how to do this in a different video. The beadwork on here as well, I will also show that in a different video. I'm not going to show you how to do it. I'm actually going to show you a couple of different stitches, and I'm going to show you how to sew it onto a piece of hide or leather, and it will just go kind of right there. So I'll show you all the items that you'll need. So you'll need your beaded piece, which again I'll show in a future video. So you'll need a bag or a piece of cloth or whatever you want to use. And this one measures 30 centimeters by 10 centimeters wide. Fire line, scissors, of course a needle, a beading needle, whatever size you like, doesn't really matter. You will also need some Nymo. Wax is always helpful. For this one, we're going to need some glue, and I'm going to use this gem tack. Beads of your choice, whatever color or colors that you like. So I'll be using a mixture of them, and I'll tell you what colors they are as and when we get to that part. So, how big do I want this bag to be? So, you know, I want just a small fold over. I'm not measuring this. I don't really need to. But actually, I'll just leave that folded over for now. But I also want to mark inside. I'm going to just put a little pen mark inside where the fold is going to be. That's quite important. So you've got these little 2 pen marks there, just so you know where you're going to be folding your bag. And I'm just, you don't have to draw a line straight across, but I'm going to, just because it's a bit easier for me to see the whole thing. So that's all we need to do for now. And then I'm going to just make sure that I fold this on that fold line. Move my pen out of the way. I'm going to fold that over. And now I want this to be on the back. This will be kind of the front of the bag. So I'm going to put this onto the back of my bag here. And then I'll just decide where I want it to be. Now, you can just go ahead and actually sew this on. That's not a big deal. It's not an issue at all. But I find that by me gluing this down, it doesn't move around. And I found that if I don't glue it down, sometimes it'll shift a little bit, and then you'll get your piece off-centered like that. So if you want to make sure that it stays in the center, then that's where you want to put it. I'm going to change my mind, and here, I'll put that the right way around for you. So I'm going to be using weld bonded instead. I do like this a little bit more. And I'm going to just scoop a little bit of it with my finger. This stuff's starting to dry out a little bit. But I want to just put it down kind of in the center. You don't need a whole ton of the stuff. So I'll just put a little bit of it on there. And that's the key, is a little bit. Boy, this stuff's getting really rather thick and goopy now. But I want to just spread that on, and I do not want to go to the edges. I want to make sure that I just put a little bit on in a location that it's not going to interfere with me putting my beads on or any other beads on with my goopy fingers. I'll move that back to the center, and I'll just kind of eyeball that a little bit where I want it. And that looks like it'll be a good spot. I'm just going to press that down. I'll give that a little bit of time to dry, and then I will come back and start showing you how to sew this on. I'm going to just do a knot on my needle, and hopefully you can see this. I'll just keep my eye on the camera there. So I take the long end, so I've got my thread. I don't know if you can see it, but I've gone down to the long end here. Whoops, sorry, I can't really seem to stay in frame. So that's the very long end of the thread, and I want to lay it across my needle, and then I'm going to hold that with my thumb and my forefinger, and then I'm going to take this part and I'm going to wrap it around about 5 or 6 times, and then I'm going to pull all of that and hold it between my thumb and forefinger. I'm going to squeeze and pinch, then I'm going to just pull my needle, just keep pulling, and then I've got a really good knot at the end there. I'm just going to do some very rough sewing because I got glue on here, and then I'm going to be sewing an outline color all around here. So I'm not going to get too fussed about how much I stitch on, but just want to make sure that I do get this stitched on. So I'm going to come up. Doesn't really matter where. And then I'm going to go through some beads, and it doesn't matter how many I go through, 3 or 4 perhaps. And I'm going to just pull. Turn this because I'm going to pull my beads out if I pull them in the wrong direction. I'm just going to pull, and you can see my thread is coming out right here in between these 2 beads. So I'm going to put my needle back down in between the 2 beads and sort of in between those 2 rows. And again, I'm just going to pull. So I don't need to focus an awful lot on putting a ton of stitching in here. I'm just going to move up a little bit further, somewhere else on here, and pull. And then again, I'll go through a number of beads. I don't know, 3 or 4, however many I want. Once again, not being overly concerned. And once in a while I just check and make sure that it's still staying centered there. Now I'm not going to make you sit and watch me do this the entire way around. You can always rewind the video a little bit if you like, but anyway, I'm going to sew all the way around here, and when I've done that, I'll come back and then I'm going to put on my outside row of bead edging. Okay, well, I'm pretty much back at the start now, and it might be a little bit hard to see this, but I've got a fair amount of this, the black felt showing, so I want to trim that a little bit. I don't want to trim it so much that I potentially cut stitches in the back or leave myself nothing to really sew with, but I don't want so much of it that it's going to show really easily on the back, so, or through the beads, I mean, because the beads may not be quite wide enough. So I'm just going to go around in a few areas and trim that up a little bit. It's easier to trim this right now rather than to wait until you've finished beading. So I'm just kind of neatening that up a little bit. I think I'm going to do the red border. I think that might look a little bit nicer. I'm going to just put my needle down. It's coming out right there. So I'm just going to put it back down. And you can see it's going in between those two rows right there. When I bring it back up, I always now want to be on the outside of this, and if I can, I will catch a little bit of that black. Might be hard to see that on the video, but I just want to catch some of that black fabric. Now this isn't critical because I've already sewn this on. So this technique that I'm going to be showing you in a moment is, it's just a very basic back stitch. And some people love this and some people really do not love it at all. But I use a variety of different techniques. Typically I like to use, if you hear some panting, that's my dog that just came in. But typically, you know, it depends on what I'm trying to do. Like, if I'm following a form around, then I like to use backstitch. So backstitch, a lot of different people on YouTube have a lot of different rules on how to do this. And they'll tell you you can only pick up 2 or 3 beads at a time. Do not pick more than that up. But I've always found if I'm following a form, I never have a problem with it. And I always pick up 4 beads every single time. So I guess I'm a little bit of a rule breaker for them that way. So I'm going to pick up 4 beads and I'm going to slide those down. And I'm going to lay them right along the edge of the blue beads there. Hopefully you can see that. And what I want to do is I want to push them back to the beginning of the thread. That's really important, is to just keep pushing them back. I don't know if you can see this, but there's just a little bit of thread showing there. So I'm going to push them back till I can't see that. And then I'm going to put my needle right down directly in front of that first bead. So I'm going to pull. Just get caught on a ton of things. And that will edge that nicely. So now I'm going to come back up in between these 2 beads here. I really hope you can see this. It's hard for me to see in my little camera viewfinder how close or how far away to be, but and then I'm going to go in through these 2 beads at the front. So I put 4 beads down. I came up in between bead 2 and 3, but I'm going to put my needle in through those 2 beads in the front there. Whoops, and drop it. And then I'm going to pull, and I'm ready to put on my next set of 4 beads. Okay, I'm going to come in a little bit closer. Oh. Just hopefully you can see that a little bit better. Okay, so my thread is coming out the front now. I'm going to pick up 4 more beads. And I will slide my 4 beads down. And again, I will lay them alongside the blue beads. And once again, I want to push them back. I'm going to put my needle down in front of the red beads and try to get through that black fabric. And I'm going to come back 2 beads and go through the 2 front beads. Then we'll go through those two front ones again. I'm going to show you that one more time, and then I'll go off camera to go around, because I don't want this to be a crazy long video, because it could be. All right, so that's looking pretty nice, that red. My nose is all clogging up yet again, so. Okay, so 4 beads. Slide down. And then I want to lay them around the petal of the flower. Push the beads back. Make sure they're sitting where I want. And put my thread down. Okay, and then we're going to come back 2 beads. Alright, hopefully I'm not going out of frame here. I apologize. It's just hard to see what I'm doing and then look into the viewfinder at the same time. So that's it. Pretty basic. Just pick up another 4 beads, needle down in front of the front bead, come back 2, bring your needle up and go through those 2, pick up 4 beads. So I will continue this and I'll come back when I'm finished. So I have finished sewing around the entire flower, and now I'm going to just tie off in the very back here. It's probably going to be a little bit hard to see my thread, but all I'm going to do is just hook into a thread on the back. And just tie that off. And I'll go through a few times. That should be good. And there we go. So that's it, done. Now I need to choose what color of beads I want to put along the edging. Well, I could not really find my dark blue ones, but I've got the lighter blue ones, and they're sort of close to this color, so I'm going to go with this one. And so since I'm using blue, I'm not going to use my red Wildfire. So I will instead use a blue one to match that. So I will get my needle threaded up with this, pour out some beads, get this set up, and we'll be ready to go. All right, so I've got my beads out. I've got my my bag folded over, and I have got a crazy amount, and I mean a crazy amount of thread. And so I'm going to catch on absolutely everything within a short radius of me, but that just calls for patience. So the bag will look like this. I'm going to cut that a little bit later. But here's how we start the bag. So we will be going in this corner right here. We will sew across, down, across, all the way up, across, and then down to here. And then we'll finish there. From the beads off the bottom, as well as the top here, I will create a fringe. So let's get started with that. So first, I've got a knot in here, and I am going to just put my needle through the corner. And pull all the way through. At the beginning, you're always going to pick up 2 beads because we're actually going to be doing a brick stitch around the edge. So 2 beads. I'm going to slide those all the way down to the end And now what I want to do is I want to continue to put my needle in from one side only. And it doesn't matter that those are kind of floating around there. But I want to go in from the corner approximately 2 beads width away. So I'm just simply I'm not gonna worry about the beads for now. I'm just simply gonna put my needle back through again about 2 bead widths from the end of the corner there. And the size of beads that I'm using here are much bigger than the ones that I did the beadwork with. These are a size 8. All right, and all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull. I'm gonna just pull. And now, move my little tail thread out of the way. Now I want to come up underneath this second bead here, right? The one that's second from the end. I'm going to come up and pull my needle through there and my thread. All right. And now you'll notice this bead here, the very first bead, is kind of sitting upwards. A lot of people say don't worry about that until the very end because you can attach the last bead onto it, and that's true, but I like to secure it right now. So I've come up out of this, the second bead away from the corner, so I'm going to go back down this bead. And again, if you want to rewind this later, you can, because this is the only time I'll be adding 2 beads on. And of course, working with a really long section of thread, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to get some tangling going on here. So there we go. All right. Just got to find the end of my thread here that I can pull. There we go. All right, so I came up, back up through this second one, down through the very first bead, and I'm going to pull. Now one more time, I'm going to go up through the second one more time. And when I pull, the thread, this loop of thread right here, is going to push against these beads and make them both lie flat. Or that's the theory anyway. So I can kind of push them a little bit and make that happen. I'm going to keep making sure that my tail thread gets pulled back over in here. All right. So that will make it lay fairly flat. Now I'm going to be picking up 1 bead at a time only. I don't have to worry about going back through other beads or anything. So I will pick up 1 bead. And again, I'm going to continue going through just this one side. All right, and I'm going to go away about a bead's width away from the other bead. Push my needle through and pull. And I'm going to hold onto my thread, and I'm going to come back up through the bottom of that bead that I just added on. And this is just simple brick stitch as edging, that is. Let's do that again. So I pick up my bead, I put my needle in about a bead's width away from this one, put it through the fabric or the hide, and then I pull my thread, and then I want to pull my needle up through the bottom. Now see this thread right here, I'm holding it onto it with my fingers to keep it out of the way. If I don't, then the bead will loosen off and it'll be hard to get my needle up there. So up through the bottom, and then I can just simply pull, just watching for tangles. And there we go. All right, I'll do this again without talking for a bit. I'll put several more beads on just so you can see. Now, the amount of thread that I've used is 2 arm spans, and I do that so I don't have to add or change any thread while I'm putting these beads on. So I'm gonna cut the camera off for now, and I'm gonna get down to the end here, and then I'll show you how we continue on. Top edge all completely done except for one spot. So I will add 1, maybe 2 more. We'll see what the requirement is. See if we need to fit another one or not. I think we're okay without that. So now what we need to do is we need to fold this up. So we want to make sure that we are on our fold line. Now you can hopefully guess, rather than going through 1 layer, we're actually going to go through 2. So really it's the same. There's no difference in what I'm doing here. I'm just going to go through both of those layers. I'm just changing direction to go down the bag now, and the other difference is instead of 1 layer, I'm going through 2. And pull. Up underneath. And there. Same thing. It's the exact same thing. We're doing nothing different. We're just changing directions and going down, or changing directions and going through 2 layers of hide. But the way we put the beads on, it's all the same. We've already done that along the edging. Nothing new there. Okay, I will finish this down to the end and then show you something a little bit slightly different along the bottom here. So I'll be back in a bit. So I've done sort of the top front of the purse and down the side, and hopefully you can see that, but I've really gone right down to the very end here. And now, before I go any further, I'm going to take another needle and just some spare thread. And I'm going to make sure that my fold line is correct here. So I want to make sure that my fold line is on the mark. Hide is funny. It will actually kind of stretch a lot. So I tend to want to just tie this to help it keep its shape and go where it needs to go. Now, the other thing about hide is that because it's stretchy and it's already kind of, I don't know, it's already kind of probably just warped in different ways as you cut it, because some areas are looser than others. So so what I'll do is, as I sew across here, this will probably not completely meet up right there. It usually doesn't. but it's okay. As long as I can get it kind of close. So this part here is no different from where we went from here and down. We're just turning a corner. So I've come right down to the very end here. I've got that bead right on the very end. And again, all I need to do is pick up one bead and go along the top here now. And I'm actually still going through sort of 2 layers. Let me see if I can get this to show up correctly. I'm sorry, my fingers are in the way, but I got to get this through the hide. So I'm just kind of catching the hide here. I don't need to sew this together. I'm putting the brick stitch on the bottom for when I do the fringing, and it makes it a lot easier when I do this. I have experimented with this hundreds of different ways, and I have always found that this really has turned out always to be the best way for me to get fringing to work properly. I have actually tried to leave the hide bag wide open, and then to try and just sew the line across here with just the beads. I'm not explaining that very well, but I did try a few different techniques to do that, and I could never get the beads to go straight. It never looked very nice. It was just silly looking. So I'm just catching a little bit of the hide right there. And back up underneath and pull. So now I've shown you how to go around 2 corners. So across there and down and across here. It's going to be the same thing. You're just going to turn a corner. You're going to go all the way up here, turn the corner, go here, and then meet me back right about there. So a little kind of close to where you're going to end off here, maybe 1 or 2 beads away from there. And then I'll show you how to just kind of attach everybody together just so it looks really nice and neat.